let's go through the things that you should never say in a job interview, because unbeknownst to you, they might be giving off all kinds of bad signals. Some things will get you eliminated outright, some of these. Others, maybe not in itself, but they really count against you. And if there's more than one or two of these, can be a big deal. So let's go through this. Okay, there's multiple things you could say that would be bad. And what I've done is I've grouped them into different categories. So let's go through this category by category. The first thing you don't want to do when you go down to a job interview, when you're sitting down with a recruiter or a hiring manager, is signal a lack of research on your part for the role, okay? When you go down there, you should know what job you're interviewing for. You should understand it, okay? So saying things like, so what would I be doing in this role? Like that can signal like a lack of research of, what the role is, right? Saying things like, sorry, what's the job title again? Stuff like that. Don't say that. These are obviously bad. When you go down to an interview, the other party is going to expect that you will know what you're there for and you understand the role that you're hiring for. So if you have filled out an application and you did it because the requirements were all things that you have or something, but you're actually unfamiliar with the role itself, like with that job title, do your own research on the job title and try and learn what the hell it is before you actually show up there. Okay, just a good tip. So that's kind of the first category, lack of research. The next category is something similar. It's called a lack of awareness. Not being aware of what the company does, who the company is, like that is also bad. And in this day and age, all it takes is 2 minutes on Google, usually, to look up a company, look up an organization, whichever organization you're interviewing with, right? Learn the basics of who they are. What do they do, right? Some companies are very simple. They make one product. There you go. Other companies, it's a little more complicated. They make many things. They have many different divisions, and each division might have a head office and branch offices and all this kind of stuff. So make sure you understand, okay, I'm going down to interview with this big company. This is the, appliance division or the medical devices division of that large multinational company. For this division, for medical devices, their head office is in the United States. It's in Chicago or something, but they have a branch office here in Boise, Idaho. So that's what's going on. It's a branch office of the medical devices division of their company. And these are the products that they sell. These are the services they provide. And this is kind of how big they are. And this isn't a new operation. It's been around for at least 10 years. So knowing something like that would be probably good, for showing up at a job interview. If you don't know that much and you didn't take literally 2 minutes to look this up, that signals something bad about you, okay? So saying things like, I really don't know what this company does, or no, I've never used your products or services before, right? That would be bad too. So don't do that. Another thing you can signal that's bad for you is a lack of preparation. Okay, now there's a lot of things in this category, a lot of things you could possibly say, things that you should know better not to say. And maybe I'm being a little harsh, but that's how it's going to be taken, okay? So the obvious one is at the end of the interview when they say, do you have any questions for us? You say, nope. Don't do that. Always have questions. Always have a couple of questions ready. What do you see the challenges for this industry going forward? What do you see the challenges for this role? The biggest challenge for the person that's going to be in this role. What do you see as their biggest challenge? Something like that, right? And then where do we go from here? Those are some great questions. Saying things like, I'm actually really nervous right now. Sometimes in public speaking, you can deflect nervousness by just admitting it to your audience. Not here, not in a job interview. You should, everyone's going to be nervous to a degree, but you need to be able to overcome that and still get through the interview. Okay? Saying, can I get back to you with the answer to that? That kind of falls under this category too. Okay, it's a lack of preparation. You should be able to answer. You should be able to answer the questions we ask. That's their attitude, okay? Rightly or wrongly, that's their attitude, okay? So don't say like, can I get back to you with the answer? Don't say, I don't know, right? You know what I mean? Have an answer prepared. Have a fallback answer prepared. if they ask you a question and you don't answer because you're just like, geez, like that, and there's no real answer, and it goes on forever, that also is in this category, a lack of preparation, okay? That's how it's going to be perceived. Maybe, like, I feel like I'm being a little harsh on people, but what I'm telling you is that that's how they're going to interpret your answer if you were to answer like that. Not understanding how to greet people when you arrive, not understanding how to greet people and close at the end when you leave. That also falls under this category. If they show you into the room for an interview, you say, thank you very much. It's great to be here, even though it probably really doesn't feel like it at all. Okay, you have to be pleasant. It's called etiquette and protocol. Okay, if they extend a hand, you should shake it. If you don't, it's the height of rudeness. If you don't, I know there's some weirdness from lingering from COVID and stuff like that, but you have to pay attention to the stuff. If they say thank you for coming in, which is probably going to be one of their opening statements, you say thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to come down and speak with you guys. Something like that's a very good opening. I'm excited to learn more about this position, that kind of thing. At the end, when they say, well, thank you very much, that sounds very good. We'll be in touch. You say, well, thank you very much for having me and for giving me this opportunity to come down and speak with you. I wish you all the best. Take care. Something like that. So not doing any of that stuff, or, not understanding what to say when they say, it's very nice to meet you, that signals a lack of preparation. So learn that stuff. It's really not too hard. For young people who've never done this kind of thing before, or you're an introvert like me, you have to be explicitly taught some of this stuff a lot of times. But it's really easy. Look it up on Google, look it up on ChatGPT, look it up wherever you want, and then practice. Practice doing mock interviews where you do this stuff, and you'll have it down. You'll be like a pro, okay? Next category, okay, for what not to say in a job interview is showing or signaling a lack of commitment to the job. Now, what you got to understand is that in a job interview, people who are interviewing a candidate for a job, okay, they're looking for someone who cares about the job. They care about doing the job. They're not just taking it for the money. They have some affinity or interest or even enthusiasm about doing this kind of work. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, okay? Yeah, in some jobs, that's a really tall order, and I agree. But nevertheless, that's what they're kind of looking for. So if you go down there and you signal through your body language and stuff you say that you really don't care about this job at all, you're only here for the money, all you care about is learning about what they can offer you, and you signal that your heart's not going to be in it, you're going to try and weasel out of doing anything optional, you're not really interested in being a part of their team, or helping them or giving back or anything like that. Once again, I know it's a tall order, but that's what these people are looking for. They're at least looking for someone that they get the vibe that they'll come in, they'll be positive, they'll be enthusiastic, and they'll care about doing their job well. That's what they're looking for. So if you say things that signal that that's really not you, that's going to be a problem. So for example, you go down to an interview, especially it's the first interview, and you say things like, so how much does this job pay? That signals your mind's, I'm only thinking about pay. I don't care about the job. I don't care about you. I care about what I'm going to get. That's all I care. That's priority one. That's why I bring it up first. Likewise, so what's the benefit package like? Like asking this stuff right off the hop. That's bad. They're not going to like that. How many vacation days do I get? That kind of thing. Now, I know what you're thinking. I know that, this stuff is important, and it is important, but now is not the time to bring that up. Now is the time where you have to try and sell yourself as the person they want to offer it to. Then you can have a serious discussion about all that stuff later. That's how this works. Okay? I know it's annoying. You don't know if you really want to take it unless it pays a certain thing. But what I'm trying to tell you is that you bringing it up first and then having this attitude like, well, I need to know this up front, and if I don't hear what I'm hoping to hear, then it's a waste of my time to be here. That's the type of candidate they're going to eliminate first, okay? That's what we're all thinking, but it's rude, and it's very poor salesmanship to do this, okay? You're making a very bad first impression when you do stuff like that, okay? Saying things like, so, how long do I have to wait to be promoted? Asking that question kind of signals that, you're not interested in being in this role. You're thinking of getting out of it as soon as possible, right? Now, I understand it's good to want to be promoted and, blah, 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 grow, but mentioning it first thing in the first interview and you bring it up to them, that's not the time and place to talk about this stuff, okay? Not from their perspective, it isn't. Now, here's a controversial one saying, of course I'm applying to other jobs, right? Now, sometimes they'll ask you this question. I did a video about this recently where they say, so are you interviewing for anything else? Or are you entertaining other offers? They're very similar questions. There's pros and cons of saying yes or no. I recommend you say no, okay? And especially in situations like this, where they would love to believe that you're interested in them, and it'll reflect poorly on you as a candidate if you say you've got other offers and things imminent, because although I know some people say it creates a sense of urgency, my observations are that that's false. What I've seen is that recruiters and hiring managers, they're moving at their own pace. They're not going to be hurried along by you, okay? So if they feel that you're about to be snapped up by somebody else and that presumably your hopes and expectations are on that job, they're going to be less enthusiastic about pursuing this with you. Seems like you're taken. Seems like you got other irons in the fire, Okay? Asking, is this a remote job? Now, I know what you're thinking. That's important, and it is, but this is the wrong time to bring it up. It signals this is where your head's at, and it signals that you don't really want to come in and interact with people and be a part of their team. You're just looking to get as much of this as you possibly can out of this. Saying, is this a remote job, or how much of this is remote work, right? Is there remote work? How much of it is remote work? Things like that. Not the time and place to be asking about stuff that benefits you and not them, okay? So all of this can signal a lack of commitment to the role, and they will perceive all of this stuff as bad, okay? It's important stuff that you need to know, but you don't get into it here. You get into it at the end. They don't even know if they're interested in you anyway at this point. So, you know what I mean? So I would not recommend you say any of this stuff in a job interview until you get an offer, okay? After you get an offer, it's slightly different. Then you can bring this stuff up. Okay, the next category of what you don't want to do is you don't want to signal to them that you're the type of person that talks bad about other people, okay? You badmouth others. Because if you badmouth somebody else to these interviewers, you'll probably badmouth them to the next bunch of people, right? That's the type of person you are, okay? You're signaling who you are. So if they say, how was your last boss? What didn't you like about them? And you say, oh, my last boss was a jerk. You know what his problem was, and you just go on, right? Don't do that, okay? They might ask you, about your current job. Don't say, I hate my current job. Even when they bait you, they say, what's a thing that your current boss has done that you really, really hated or something, or rubbed you the wrong way, made you think less of them. Like they'll ask you these kind of baiting type questions, and you've always got to wriggle out. You say, actually, my current boss, I really don't have a problem with. We're actually almost friends, you could describe it. So nothing leaps to mind that they've done that has made me hate them. We have differences of opinion here and now and again, but it's really not a problem. And just leave it at that, right? You wriggle out of that trap. Don't say I hate my current job, all my coworkers suck. Don't say stuff like that. Don't say things like, God, I hate dealing with customers. They're so stupid. And don't talk negatively about them. I've seen that where people come in and say like, oh, from what I've seen of your operation here, you guys are doing some things really backwards, And they think that by pointing this out, they're showing like, oh yeah, you see how efficient I am and how I could improve your operation. Okay, that may be true, but don't come in and like find fault with people, because that's going to backfire big time with most people. People don't like being told they're wrong. People don't like having their faults pointed out to them. You know what I mean? So just have a little bit more tact and indicate that in a much more diplomatic, positive way, if you're going to say that at all, okay? Don't find fault with them or the way they're doing things or anything you see. So that's all part of a category where you're signaling that you're a very negative person. You like to badmouth people behind their back. You like to say negative things. Don't do that. The next category is signaling that you're disloyal, okay? That you're seeking to minimize your contribution to these people, right? Your heart's not really in this. It's not really what you want to do, right? That is an instant turnoff to them. They want to hire people that like, this is like their dream job, right? Now I know, like I said before, I know that might be a really tall order. Trust me, I get it. But that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that weird person who wants to do this menial work, and they like it. They don't want, they're not just like doing this just so they can put in their time and get a promotion. They're doing this because they actually don't mind doing this. They like it. They've been doing it for a while. It's kind of what they're familiar with, what they like to do, Okay, so saying things like, I'm still going to be working on my thing. If you have a business on the side or a side hustle, don't mention side hustles. Don't mention businesses on the side. Don't mention ambitions to have side hustles or businesses on the side, okay? Because that makes these people think that, well, if we hire you, you've got this other thing going on the side, and that's where your heart is. That's where your loyalties lie. We're going to be a distant second to this thing you really want to do. So if we demand you put in some extra hours or come in for overtime or, do whatever, you're not going to want to do that because you've got this other thing that's making you money. And also, if we're not your sole income, maybe we won't be able to have as much influence over you as we'd like to, or something. These people, they want to be your sole source of income, okay? So don't say things like that. Don't say things like, so is it cool that I'll be working on my own business, when I'm not at work? Don't say stuff like that. Don't ask questions like, so what are the hours where I'll have to actually be at work? That kind of signals that you're trying to minimize those as much as possible. Saying things like, do I have to stay till 5 p.m. or, whatever time, right? Don't say stuff like that. Like, I know you want to know this, but now is not the time. This is a sales pitch. Okay, the purpose of this is to make them love you and think like, wow, that person's awesome, and we got to have them. They're the perfect person for this. I got a great feeling about them. Everything they said was like totally positive and, no red flags whatsoever, and I got a great vibe. So don't say this stuff, okay? These would signal that, you're disloyal to them. You're seeking to minimize your contribution to them while getting as much as you possibly can from them. Don't say arrogant things. That's the next category. There's a lot of things you could say that would signal that you're arrogant, okay? Don't say things like, you're never going to find someone as good as me, right? It's like, yeah, I've heard that before, usually from people that are useless. Don't say things like, I don't even know if I want to work here yet. It's so stupid. Don't say things like that. The problem is some people believe, unfortunately, that, the more sort of arrogant and dismissive you act, like, I don't need this job, I'm so in demand, that will translate to you being seen as more desirable as a candidate. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, okay? It just comes across as arrogant. Would you want to work with a person like that? Who thinks like, I'm far too cool for this job. I'm far too good. I'm far too talented. I'm used to much higher pay than this. Do you really want to work with that person? I can tell you from experience, being the boss of a person like that is not fun. Every time you give them an instruction, you get an argument on your hands and you get their hoity-toity behavior and, like they're above everything, and they're not. Their coworkers resent them because the coworkers just get on with the job while these people act like prima donnas. So, you know what I mean? Don't do that in a job interview. Don't say things like, I don't know if you guys can afford me, It's like, and I guess in this category also is saying things like, in 5 years, I see myself in your job, right? It's like, yeah, you wish, buddy. It just, don't say stuff like that. It can really come across as arrogant. Obviously, this stuff is kind of fuzzy around the edges, depending on who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a psychopath, you're being interviewed by some hiring manager that's like some kind of sociopathic person, in the construction industry or something like that. Maybe some of these are not going to be as fatal as I'm making them out to be, but a lot of other people, they will. Okay, so just don't take the risk. You never know who you're dealing with. Okay, next category is lying. You don't want to give the impression that you're lying, and that if they ask you a serious question that they want to know the answer to, you give them a sort of transparent white lie. That makes them think like, okay, well, I'm getting nowhere because you're not answering my questions. You're not giving me truthful answers. You're just giving me, catchphrases or things that are too good to be true. So saying things like, I can do anything, I have no faults, right? Don't say stuff like that. I've never made a mistake. I have no weaknesses, right? Stuff like that. And then hiding behind buzzwords, saying, oh yeah, I'm a team player. These are a bit more controversial. Some people may not regard these as bad. I know other people do. I'm results oriented. It's like, well, yeah, that sounds nice, but do you know what that means? Give me an example. I'm a self-starter. These are all cliched buzzwords. Okay. They're maybe not the end of the world in themselves, but when you just like say that as like, this is who I am, and then you don't qualify it, it's like it's not very effective. It can come across as arrogant. Don't sound desperate. Don't say like, I really need this job. Really, really, I need it. Don't say like, I'll do anything, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I'll do it. Things like that. That's kind of, it signals that you're desperate. Don't do that. Even if you're desperate, don't say stuff like this, because it just signals a whole bunch of negative things for recruiters and hiring managers. Okay, that's not the person they want to hire. 2 more categories left. The next one is unprofessional conduct. Don't drop F-bombs in a job interview. Don't use bad language. I don't care if these people are using bad language. They drop 3 F-bombs in every sentence when they're interviewing you. I don't care. Reply with proper language, respectful language. Okay? Sometimes that's a trick. Other times you don't know who else will be listening in, and you don't really know what's going on with the stranger that's interviewing you. Sometimes they can bait you into doing it. And I totally get it. I worked in an industry where you have at least 1 F-bomb in every sentence, when you talk to your boss, you know what I mean? Like, I know what it's like, okay? But in a job interview, you got to clean up your language, okay? Also like sort of just being kind of, what's the word? Too forceful, too direct, trying to dominate the conversation. I did a video on this a couple of years ago, and my sort of example of this that I did in the video, I'm a terrible actor, by the way, was saying, to the interviewer, can you stop looking down at your paper when I'm talking to you? Thanks. Like things like that. Stop writing when I'm like answering a question you just asked me. Things like that. Don't try and do that stuff. It does not come across as assertive. 95% of the time, it comes across as arrogant and unpleasant. And they will probably fail you just for that. Because regardless of how brilliant you are, they don't want to work with that person who's going to say stuff like that to them. The job interview is kind of like a free sample of what you're like and what you would be like on the job. So if you're starting to act like this in the job interview, God knows what you're going to be like on the job. And just a couple of miscellaneous things that I've heard. Don't talk about old accomplishments when they ask for examples. And by old, I mean older than 10 years ago. Okay, if you got more than 10 years of experience and they're asking you for examples of things, don't give examples from like over 10 years ago. At least if you're dealing with a recruiter. Okay? Some hiring managers, that might vary. That wouldn't be an issue for me, for example, but I know for a lot of recruiters, this modern HR thing and the way they think, that would be a red flag. Because if you give an old example, supposedly they think like, well, that's great, but it's a risk factor because does that mean you haven't done anything recently? That's how these people think. And don't talk about your ambitions beyond this job. Okay? As far as they're concerned, you want this job. That's what you want. End of list. Okay? Don't talk about how one day you're going to start a business or one day you're going to be the CEO or, whatever. Just talk about this job. That's what you want. That's what you're here for. So don't talk about other things outside of that or just personal stuff, ambitions in your personal life. Okay, so that's what I would say in response to the title of this live stream. The title, don't say these things in a job interview. You steer away from these kind of red flags, these problem areas, and you should be fine. Are all of these fatal all the time? No, but it's not good to say these things. The more you can minimize saying these things, the better you'll do across the board. Hopefully that makes sense.